guess I'll be Jerry Jeff Walker once more.
Today we talk to Steve Earle about his new tribute album to his old buddy Jerry Jeff Walker. We find Steve at his new home in Battery Park, New York, having just put young John Henry to bed.
Just getting by my stocking trade, living in day to day, just picking up pieces wherever they fall.
So I was finally able to buy a place in New York. I've been renting the whole time I've been here. I own a house in Tennessee, but I've been finally able to buy a place, and I wanted to get a place with a swimming pool for John Henry because he lives for water.
Right.
So there's no swimming pools in the village. So we moved down to Battery Park City, down to into the island, and so I'm looking at the Statue of Liberty out my window right now.
Nice. Well, you can't beat that.
Pretty great. And I like it. I was perfectly willing to do it for John Henry, but I like it way better than I thought I would down here.
Cool. Yeah. And what does it feel like as a fellow American who's escaped these days? What does it feel like looking at the Statue of Liberty with the way
it's
things
weird
are?
Because it's, I'm looking at the Statue of Liberty and right there's Ellis Island. Right. And it's nighttime, but you can still see it. It's all lit,
Yep.
She's green and she's right there, So, I mean, I literally, and I could take a picture or show you, but it doesn't, how the depth of field doesn't really work
right.
to show you how close it is. It's because I'm 2 blocks from the Battery, I'm like 2 blocks to the Hudson River one direction and 2 blocks down to the Battery the other direction. I'm in one of the original Battery Park buildings and on the 16th floor. So it's a pretty good view.
Cool. Well, let's talk about your new record, Jerry Jeff.
Okay. Yeah.
I know you obviously knew Jerry Jeff Walker, and Jerry's no longer with us, sadly. You played a tribute. What's the backstory behind how the record itself came about?
Well, I mean, I was invited to come play the tribute concert, and I sang at his funeral. Susan wasn't able to have a service when he passed away because everything was locked down. So she did it months later, and I got invited. And myself, Emmy, Emily O'Harris, Jeff Hanna, of course, the Dirt Band, had the biggest hit.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Michael Murphy was there. Lloyd Maines put the band together because he had Jerry Jeff's, it was Jerry Jeff's band at the end there.
Yep.
Who else was on it? It was cool. And of course, Django, Django sang Getting By at that show.
Right.
I did Hill Country Rain for the first time at that show. And I did, what else did I do? I did one of the Guy songs. I think I did Desperados Waiting for a Train because, Jerry Jeff's the one that made that song famous, So the album, I wanted it to be, it occurred to me, there that I'd done the Townsend Guy records and it just didn't make sense for me not to
right.
make the Jerry Jeff record. So those are my 3 guys. I mean, it's almost like, but him being gone, it's almost like when you as an adult lose the second of your parents, those guys are a big deal for me. And now they're gone and I'm here, and I'm still here disconnected. So it's like, I just felt like I had to do it. But what I wanted to do was, he was so generous about, he went out of his way to promote other people's songs. He was a great interpreter of other people's songs. So there's that. And there's also, you write one song like Mr. Bojangles that can overshadow the rest of your work. And I wanted to make a record entirely of his songs. And, I've heard people call him a one songwriter, and it simply wasn't true. I wanted to make a record that sort of, took all the air out of that theory.
Fair enough. So you recorded it after the tribute. So what kind of circumstance were you recorded in New York? Did you, or where?
I did record Electric Lady, which was, until I moved down here, Electric Lady was like 4 blocks from my apartment. So I've done the last several records there. Because I only tour in the summer for the most part. And I've been concentrating on theater music and staying in New York to keep John Henry in the school that he needs to go to. So,
right.
So Electric Lady is 4 blocks away. So that's where I've recorded it goes back to Washington Square Serenade. The studio parts of that were made there a lot of it was made in my apartment, but because the way that record was arrived at, because it was all about beats and it was banjos and beats, that record.
Banjos and beats, yeah.
So but I made a lot of records there since. I made, JT was made there. Guy was made in Nashville.
Right.
JT was made there. Ghost of West Virginia was made there. It's, and I've done a lot of kind of one-off projects at Electric Lady over the years.
Cool. So who was playing with you? Was it the Dukes? Was it?
It's a Duke. Yep. It's a Dukes record. If it says Steve Earle and the Dukes on the record, that means the Dukes played on the entire record.
Gotcha.
If it's some of this, some of that, playing with different people, then I'll call it just a Steve Earle record. That's what I've always done.
Okay, all righty. So my understanding is you and Jerry Jeff went way back. Like you were his chauffeur or something? And
I didn't work for him officially. People are starting to get that like he was actually paying me. That's not what it was. I was his designated driver before that term was invented.
Gotcha.
I basically, I was when I met Jerry Jeff, finally got to know him, was after I moved to Nashville and I was in Guy's band, which was 74.
Right.
And then Guy comes over one night and says, I just signed my publishing deal because Guy had bugged this publisher forever. And they finally signed me. And then he came over at one point after we did a couple of runs after his record came out. And he came over one night and he said, hey, you got a publishing deal now. You need to stay here and write some songs. I need a better bass player. So I got fired, and very, very lovingly.
I'm sure.
So I was there, I would be there, in Nashville, and Guy would be gone and Jerry Jeff would show up in town.
Right.
Because that was my whole connection to Jerry Jeff was Guy. And he figured out that he, for some reason, had some trepidation about driving in Tennessee. I don't know whether he didn't have a valid license at the time or whether he'd run into trouble in Tennessee, because he got kicked out of Key West, so he was asked to leave Key West. That's how he ended up in Austin in the first place. So he preferred somebody else drive. So he knew me and he came and got me. And my poor wife, I got to go drive Jerry Jeff around. And sometimes it would be 2 or 3 days before I came back.
Right.
But, one night he came and got me and woke me up in the middle of the night and said, hey, I want you to play this song for Neil. And I didn't know who the hell Neil was until we got to Spence Manor. It was Neil Young.
Of course.
And but it didn't want me to play one of my songs. It wanted to play a David Olney song called The Legal Cargo. And which hurt my feelings a little bit, but I did it because I love David Olney. So I love that song. So.
Gotcha.
And I got to meet Neil Young. So.
Well, yeah, there you go. You can't beat that. So the song, some of the songs that you've chosen, they're not all the hits, obviously, and a lot of it is from his first album. One that I kind of wanted to touch on was Gypsy Song Man, because it's got this kind of Zydeco vibe.
I'm a gypsy song man, yes sir, would you like to hear a song? I'll pick it for you now, I'll play it all night long. If the blues is all you see, this song is what you need. Gypsy song man, passing by.
Yeah, the way we did it, that was sort of our touch on it, was the idea of, more like the Kahunta thing in San Antonio where I grew up,
Right.
But it's like Jerry Jeff's version of it. It's not, it just lent itself to it. That's what it says on Jerry Jeff's buried in the Texas State Cemetery. And his tombstone says Jerry Jeff Walker is Gypsy Song Man.
Right.
And somebody told me a story the other day about it. He used to open with that song all the time. You'd hear him coming from the back of the room and he'd walk out the dressing room playing his guitar, walk up. There's all microphones in those days, no pickups,
Yep.
So he'd walk up and come up the mic, and when he got to the mic, I'm a Gypsy Song Man. Yes, sir. And so I felt like it needed to be there. There's some songs that sort of hid in plain sight. Wheel is one of them, which is on Viva Lingua. But I always thought it was an incredible song. I rearranged it a little bit. It's really long though in the form that he wrote it with the chorus happening after every one of those verses. So I doubled the verses,
right.
So that to shorten it a little bit. And I think it works like that.
As a young boy, I working in the fields, and every day we haul the hay to the rolling of the wheels, till one day the tractor laid the old man down to the ground, and tractor pitched him in the ditch and left a dusty sound. Oh, the wheel that kept spinning round.
And I'm pretty proud of that. And I'm very proud of my version of Mr. Bojangles. And
Yep.
that's a.
So when you go to sing a song like that everybody knows inside out and has been performed thousands of times, how do you bring something new to it?
Well, you know what? I was doing it. You don't bring anything new to it. That's the first thing you forget about. You just sing the fuck out of it, and I sing better than I have in my whole life, I think, right now.
Never mind Bojangles and dance for you. Worn-out shoes, silver hair, a ragged shirt, and baggy pants. The old soft shoe. He jumps so high, and a lightly touchdown.
I've been singing that song longer than anything except for As Tears Go By.
Oh, really?
I learned it for a play in high school when I was in the 9th grade. As Tears Go By, I sang in a talent show, in the 7th grade. So I was 13. Yeah, I guess that's right.
That's right.
And my, I'll never forget. Marianne Faithfull and I were doing a benefit together at Carnegie Hall, and I told her, I said, As Tears Go By is the first song I ever sang for people, for a real audience. And she said, you know what? Me too. And it's like, oh yeah, I guess that's how. And it's Bojangles. I sang it for the first time when I was 14 years old, so I know it intimately.
Yeah.
And I did it every night for a long time. And then I didn't do it for years. And then, so dusting it back off was a little, like riding a bicycle. And I did it on the Grand Ole Opry 3 weeks ago.
Right. What was it?
And,
what was it like to be on the Grand Ole Opry doing that?
That what?
What was it like to be doing that at the Grand Ole Opry?
It was great. I play the Opry every once in a while. I go Nashville specifically. I'll take John Henry to see his mom, and I'll play the Opry for the weekend. I'll do that once in a while. And I still have a house there. It was something that's never happened to me before. I did a 3-song set. I closed the Saturday Night Opry, and Jimbo Henson, who was my co-writer on a lot of the songs on Guitar Town, on several of the songs that Guitar Town, passed away recently, including Hillbilly Highway. So I opened with Copperhead Road and got that business taken care of.
Right.
And then I did Hillbilly Highway to dedicate to Jimbo. His widow was there. And then I did Mr. Bojangles, which I hadn't performed. The single hadn't been released yet. Only Getting By had been out. And and that's an audience that some of them know anything about me. Some of them don't at the Opry, because there's a lot of tourists and some of the people that even listen to country music. But it was like the place was full, and I looked up halfway through, and every cell phone light in the balcony was lit. And by the time I got done, the floor was lit. And that's never happened to me singing anything anywhere. So, it's just a special song. I think there's maybe there's 10 songs in English that are in that class with that song. There's not very many of them, They're just classified. They transcend all the boundaries, all of the categories we tried to shove music into, and it's just it's just a very, very special song.
Right. Well, interesting. You mentioned the Opry and country music. I mean, there seems to be a lot of talk about the Country Music Hall of Fame, and people are passing away and people are getting in the headlines. What do you think about the state of country music these days?
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna. I think it's what it always has been. It's not. country music's doing really well. There's only two kinds of music that sell, and that's hip hop and country. That's the mainstream.
Yep.
I'm not one of these guys that'll tell you that this isn't country that's going on. It's just not. People said that about me.
Yeah.
And it's not. The week that Guitar Town was #1, I was playing a joint in Las Vegas, and the only reason I got to #1 is one guy that was a fan that worked for the label carried one box of records in Memphis. I beat Alabama by one box of records.
Good on him.
and so I had that moment. I just gotten the phone call and heard that we were going to be #1. And the day before the chart debuted, and we were playing this joint. It wasn't a showroom; it was a dance hall, and like I grew up with. And there was this guy that was keep dancing by, and he knew how to turn the girl just right at the right moment and turn around to me and say, "Play something country." And he did that about 3 times, and the 4th time I stopped in the middle of a song. Only time I've ever done it. And I said, you know what? I have the #1 album on the Billboard Country Album charts this week. I decide what's country this week. That's the same thing with these kids. I'm actually writing with some people in Nashville to try to learn how to write a song that would get on country radio, because I don't know how to do it. The reason I'm doing it is to learn how. I'm writing a musical of Tender Mercies,
right,
with Horton Foote's daughter, Daisy.
Right.
And my idea for it, I don't know whether you've ever seen the movie or not. It's like, it's about way down on this luck, songwriter that used to be a big deal that washes up in this little town in Central Texas and meets this widow and her son. And it's like, but there's this band and they're based on Ace in the Hole, George Strait's original band. I'm sure of that because I think it was his nephew was the drummer in Ace in the Hole. So I know I'm certain that that's what he, I asked Daisy and she didn't know, but I'm certain that that's who he based those characters, those boys in the movie on. They're a much bigger deal in the musical because a lot more of it takes place in the dance hall. And so my idea is, I know how to write Max songs. But my idea is that those guys' songs are going to be absolutely contemporary country music to get on the radio right now. Then we get a shot at being Dear Evan Hansen. So it's like, it just seems like the right thing to do to me to make it that generational difference be there. But it's still about music that people care about.
Now, you mentioned earlier you feel like your voice is stronger than it's ever been. Sounds like you're busier than you've ever been. You're writing books, you're recording, you're touring. You're at an age where a lot of people used to think, well, you can't do that anymore. What's happening?
Well, you don't retire when you do something that you love. That's kind of stupid. It's not, retiring's not. I couldn't afford to do it anyway.
Right.
I've been married too many times to be able to retire. So, and I've got a 12-year-old with autism, and I've got to make sure he's going to be okay. So that's what I do. That's what I wake up in the morning and do. And I just write all the time. I write, the theater thing's important to me. I'm seeing a lot of theater right now that we finally got Coal Country closed. We did it in West Virginia for the last time last week. I went to Austin for the weekend for Willie's birthday. And, and 89. And he played. Andy had put a sign on the monitor that said 60 minutes with exclamation points behind it. I mean, he went 60 minutes was when he started doing the gospel stuff. And
Gotcha.
So it was, I just, my life's pretty good. I don't, I do something I love doing. The people that I respect the most know who I am and respects what I do. And I don't, I'm looking at the Statue of Liberty out my window right now.
There you go.
Think to complain about.
Yeah. Cool. So now you've got the tributes out of the way. You have some original tunes that you're going to present to us?
I've been writing the songs for Tender Mercies is where the songwriting has been going. There's about 8 songs I've written for that. Yep. I've written a few other things too. I may make another record sort of parallel with the songs for Tender Mercy, just so I can have something, because I'm tired of doing tribute records, for a lot of reasons. For people dying, and I'm tired of sort of living in that. And I'm glad, I don't regret it, but I'm ready to make a record of my own material. I don't know if I ever did another tribute record again. Somebody suggested I should do a Doug Som tribute record, and they're probably right because I knew him longer than I knew these other three guys. You know,
Really? Yeah.
When I was 14, and so it's not. It's just one of those things. I write all the time. I haven't stopped writing songs. The tribute records did allow me to concentrate on working on the musical. Theater takes a long time. I've done two plays with music that I was involved in from the commission, and they both took 4 years. And one was 4 years, and Cold Country was really 6 years because we got shut down by COVID and reopened.
Right.
So I'm a year and a half into Tender Mercies now, and so I look for it in about 2 years. You know, so
okay.
that's the deal. And I it's Broadway tracked. It's not about off-Broadway production. It's about a Broadway production.
All righty. Well, very good. We better get a roll on because time's a wasting.
I gotta go to bed.
You gotta go to bed
at 6 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. So.
Right. Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for taking time, staying up and talking to me. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the record. Hope it does whatever it's supposed to be doing these days, whatever records do. And
I don't even know what that is, but it's like, I think of it, so.